Okay guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm here to show you how I make the little cotton dress that goes with my Anne of Green Gables doll. And this is part of a series that I've been working through, just showing you how I make my basic doll body, cloth doll body, and so I've been going through the Anne of Green Gables version. So we have an embroidered face tutorial, a hair tutorial, a doll body tutorial, and so this is the dress, and I hope you like it. And next up will be the pinafore, so don't miss out on that. And when I do the pinafore, I'll show you how to make a little pair of bloomers and some boots for your Anne of Green Gables doll. And please like and subscribe because there's a lot more coming and I can't wait to share it with you guys. But yeah, let's get started. All right, I'm just going to start by showing you all the materials I use. Pretty basic. There are a lot of different versions of Anne of Green Gables, but I personally just absolutely love the 1985 version with Megan Follows. So I kind of was thinking of her when I picked this very antique looking calico, but this is quilter's cotton. That's usually what I use for my doll dresses, and right now I have it folded and I'm tracing out my skirt pattern piece, and I'm just going to cut that out right on the line. And one short edge is on the fold. And I'm just cutting all the way to the end because whatever I have left over after cutting this skirt piece out, I'm going to use to cut the top of the dress out. Alright, and now I'm going to switch these around so that the right side is facing in before I trace the torso of my dress. And I know people tend to have strong feelings about this, but I like to trace my pieces and then add the seam allowance once I have things traced. So that's what works for me. If you like to have the seam allowance added, I totally understand. But this is how the pattern is going to come. And so yes, now I'm just tracing the front and the back onto pieces of fabric, and I'm going to pin those and then cut them out with about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Maybe a little less. And sometimes I use white lining depending on what I'm making, so you can do that as well. You just want to make sure to flip your back piece over to trace it a second time. Now I'm cutting out the sleeves. I just cut right on the line for those, but I do leave a little extra at the bottom of the sleeve for the sleeve hem. And we're ready to sew. Now I'm going to separate my front pieces and get my back pieces and match up the shoulders. And then I'm going to sew those at the shoulders. to begin with. I set my stitch size at a 1.8. I would recommend 1.8 or 2. Right, and then I'm going to just kind of manually press those open and do the second. This would be the lining, and I'll just do the same thing. Right, and just sewing those at the shoulders again, exactly the same. And then I'm going to open that up and place the piece that's already sewn face down on that piece to match. You can pin this in place if you're comfortable. You don't have to. I usually don't, just because quilter's cotton tends to stay in place pretty well, so that's up to you. But trying to get it matched up. Maybe quilter's cotton sticks a little too well. Alright, now I'm going to sew up of the back, around the neckline, and then back down the other side. And again, about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And just give it a little pull when you get to the shoulder, just because those tend to bunch up a little bit. Now I'm just going to clip the corners and around the neck, just to make sure it presses out smoothly whenever I turn it right side out. I love my hemostats. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably have noticed that, but I'm going to turn this right side out, and the hemostats just help me get the seams pressed out and make it so much easier. to this part, I was tugging the neckline a little bit to get the seam to straighten out, and the thread broke. And so, just goes to show, sometimes just you know what works, and it's best to stick with that, because more expensive isn't always better. But now I'm just rolling the edge of the sleeve really tiny, pretty much just as small as I can get it. I turned it twice, and I'm hemming that sleeve. If you're a beginner, this might take a little practice. It did for me. It was a little bit of a learning curve when I first started doing sleeves this small. But you can see how I'll do a few stitches and then lift the foot to make an adjustment. And then we're going to fold the sleeve the long way, obviously, and sew down the bottom edge till we get to the armpit. And then I do a little back stitch. I actually do a back stitch when I begin and when I get to the armpit. you can see that the sleeve is wrong side out, so right now I'm matching the outer layer of the torso and the inner layer, and then I'm going to sew along that line, and the sleeve is going to be tucked out of the way. This is why I like video tutorials, because this kind of thing, it's a little more difficult to describe in a written pattern, for me at least, and so a video is always helpful for me. So I'm just going to trim out my little tails here and turn the sleeve right side out so you can see the result. Okay, and now we'll do the other side. One thing I've done before is sew the sleeve to the wrong side. So you just want to make sure your sleeve is going to be facing the same way as the other sleeve. I know I'm not alone in this mistake. I've seen seamstresses post pictures of having done that. So if you've done that, you're not alone either. But yeah, so once again, I'm just working my way around very slowly, making frequent adjustments, lifting the foot to make adjustments as I go every 3 stitches or so. You don't want to pull too hard on the sleeve as you're adjusting, because then it will be too long. Sewing tiny dresses like this can be tricky, because one day the pattern piece fits perfectly, and the next day I must have tugged a little too hard because it doesn't fit at all. So hopefully it all matches up for you. Yeah, the tiny garments are not as forgiving. Right, and now I'm going to fold the sleeve again, wrong side out, and sew down that bottom seam to the armpit. With a back stitch to begin and to end. Back stitch is your best friend. It keeps everything from falling apart. Okay, and then we're going to keep those 2 layers together and then open the outer layers so that the right sides of each layer are facing each other, and that sleeve is just tucked out of the way again. Okay, and I'm going to turn that right side out, and that finishes the upper part of our little cotton dress. And I'm just pulling out, giving all the seams a little tug. And that looks good. Now we can start on the skirt of the dress. I'm going to start by hemming each end of the skirt piece. Because the back of the dress, I leave it open. I put a Velcro closing, and this just makes it kid friendly. I feel like it's easier for the kids to take off the dress, to switch it. It's much more easy if the dress is just completely open in the back, and when you Velcro it closed, it closes and you can't see anything back there. So I just hem up those raw edges and leave it open. And you'll see what I mean when we finish the dress and put it on our Anne doll. It works. And now we're just going to hem up the bottom of the skirt piece. It's having a little bit of trouble starting. Sewing machines have a mind of their own. That's what there's a little gremlin in there. And there's a little gremlin in my sewing machine, and there's one in my printer as well. So, if you're a beginner, you may want to pin the hem. I'm turning it twice, and I've done this so many times that I wing it, but it's perfectly fine. If you want to pin the whole thing before you start, it does just make things more even and easy to manage. So that's totally up to you. So I hemmed it all the way to the end, and I flipped the fabric over to the other side, and I'm doing a baste stitch, two actually, side by side all the way across the top edge of the skirt piece. And I always do 2 baste stitches when I'm going to gather. It makes it so much easier to gather, and yeah, so make sure you leave some thread tails, so when it's time to gather, you've got something to grab onto. So now I'm going again. And I'm going to lay the torso piece with the inside facing me and upside down. And then the skirt piece is also going to be facing me. And I can see the halfway point on the skirt piece because of the fold. And I've marked the center point on the torso, the front of the torso. So you want to match up the middle, and then I'll start gathering a little bit before I pin the edges. It just makes it a little easier to manage. So I'm pulling that gently and gathering until I have it the right length. And I just match it right to the edge seam of that torso piece. Bodice. I keep saying torso. Bodice. That is the word. I knew that wasn't right. Okay, the bodice. We're gonna even out that gathering as much as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you'll see, you'll know when it's good. But yeah, just as even as possible, the gathering, and then we'll pin it all along that edge of the bodice. And then we'll go do the other half. Okay, so now again I'm over on the other side and I'm gathering before I pin it in place. And I'm just going to match it up. Mind you, I'm only pinning it to the inside bodice piece. So I'm not pinning it to both layers. And yes, I have a double jointed thumb. I have to say something about it so I can stop worrying about it. But I get it from my mom, and I love my mom, so I'm very proud of it. Alright, so I'm evening out that gathering, and I love making dolls for children because they're not going to look at the gathering and be like, that is a terrible gathering. You know, they're not going to care, and that's not to say we shouldn't strive for excellence, but when you're first starting especially, it's just comforting to know your child is going to love this doll and they are not going to care how even the gathering is. So that's a comfort to me. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew along the edge of that inner bodice lining. And just removing the pins as I go, and just straightening out the skirt as I go. So I just put my finger on the section that I'm about to sew, and I tug down on the skirt so that all the gathering kind of evens out and straightens out. I had to move my camera because it was shaking with the table. Right, so here again, I'm just going to place my finger along the rest of the edge and tug on that skirt so that it's all straightened out. And you may, I'm sure you've heard this, but it's best not to sew over your pins. It can break your needle, it can poke out your eye. That's the extreme scenario, obviously, but yeah, I just am careful to remove my pins as I go. Okay, and I'm just trying to stay on top of all these little tails I have hanging off. And I'm going to kind of try to press out that gathering and tug on it a little bit. You can press it with an iron if you'd like, but I just want to make sure it's all straightened out. Now I'm going to turn under that raw edge and I really like to take my time when I'm doing this because I want it to match up with the lining, the bottom edge of the lining on the bodice. So I just pin slowly around the edge. And I'll put a few pins to begin with, and then I'll go to the front of the dress and make sure that that is pinned in the right place. Alright, now I'm going to the front of the dress just to make sure that it goes straight down from the neck and there's no twisting to the right or left. And that it's even with the lining. I sew this with the machine just for the sake of time because I do make these dolls to sell, and so the faster I can make it, the less I can charge. And I love to make my dolls affordable, but you can sew this by hand, and I will have a tutorial for doing that at some point. Mine is a pretty new channel, so I have a lot of plans, but for now we're just going to sew across this bottom edge of the bodice with my machine, and I still love the way it looks and turns out. Alright, so we're just going to sew right along that edge of the bodice, starting at the back. I get as close to the edge as possible, and I just sew pretty slowly and pull on that edge so that it doesn't bunch or gather anywhere. And I'm just working my way really slowly and carefully. There's no rush. And sometimes you have to stretch it out a little bit as you go. And there we have it. So cute. I want one. I'm trimming all my little threads that are peeking out, and now I'm going to add the Velcro. I cut the Velcro to the length of the bodice, and then I trim a little bit off of the edge. And so I'm just sewing that right on the edge of the bodice. I like to sew the soft side of the Velcro to the side that's facing out, and then the hook side of the Velcro I'll sew to the side that's facing in, so that it's not as likely to snag on the doll's yarn hair. I try to trim all these little threads as I go because they add up and it can turn into quite a chore. So now I'm doing the hook side of the Velcro. I go around the edge and then I do a back stitch on the last edge just to make sure that Velcro stays put. I feel like Velcro falls off a lot when I buy things like doll clothes from Walmart or wherever. The Velcro seems to be the first thing to come undone, come off the piece. So yeah, so there we have it, and I'm just gonna pop this dress on our Anne of Green Gables doll, and you'll see it Velcros in the back and it closes up nicely, and the overlap keeps it closed, and I just love it. So alright, next up will be the pinafore tutorial, so I hope you'll join me for that, and until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.